I don't know about you, but we were poor as fuck for years. So
Yeah, totally.
hand to mouth stuff, which looking back now was fun, but at the time kind of sucked.
Well, I think what it did, because he was totally unplanned.
Yeah, same.
And I was like, right, knuckle down now.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, and so, and
I was a flake, man. Before the boy, I mean, had I not had a son, I think I just would have remained a flake.
Really?
Yeah, just been some stoner or something. How about you? Did it snap you?
No, I was ambitious. I always
were
worked
ambitious.
hard, but I was like, I knew then. Because what it was is, I know the schools I know in Bedford, I knew what they're like. I was like, right, I have to make sure I can get him into that school. I need that much money, and I just worked and worked. Probably to the cost of my marriage, worked too much, stressed myself out. But it was interesting because a lot of my friends were, I'm 25, I'm raising a kid, and my friends are all on holiday, Thailand.
Oh yeah. It's like pre-retirement, I always think, in their 20s.
Yeah.
And they're off gallivanting around and they're sitting around in restaurants and having coffees, and it's all really quiet. And it's like they've, like when their kids are all grown up and they're retired.
Yeah.
It's like that, but in their 20s. That's what I used to think of it as, because I was the same as you. It was just over there. And it's not that I particularly wanted it at the time or anything. Occasionally I'd be like, wow, that looks quite nice,
Well,
not really responsibilities.
They had all that, and so I just worked, and now I've got to that point. Like, life's not too difficult now. It's busy, but it's not too difficult. My son's 19. If I want to go out, I can look after my daughter. She's approaching an age she can stay at home, and I'm in the last stretch.
Yeah,
and I've got one of my friends he's like my age. He's got a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old.
Yeah, that's too much.
He's in for the long run, so it's one or the other.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's funny. Having the second one younger, financially, we're better off, which is great. We have less energy, which isn't so good.
More wisdom.
But there is more wisdom there. And there's also I remember with my first, we were very worried. We wanted to give them firm boundaries. We wanted to be good parents because we were quite young. Maybe we overcompensated too much. Whereas with our second, and I think it's probably true of any second child anyway, we're a little bit more relaxed.
Yeah.
We kind of let her just get on with things. And, we're less intense, as I think we're probably a little bit too intense with my first boy. So
I think a lot of parents go through all these.
Yeah, they go through the same things, don't they? What is really good about that big age gap is, how you see grandparents picking up the kids in the playground, and they're really enjoying it because because that period of life is really nice. When you're picking up your kids and there's other parents and you're chatting to them and you kind of force hang out together because the kids are going to play together. And I just think it's a really lovely period in your life. And then when it ends, like what's happened to a lot of our friends, it's kind of sad that that's gone. Whereas with us, we've got that second chance to do it, but actually really savor it.
Right.
We're not just all flying by we're actually enjoying the moment.
I think it's good. I think I get the grandparent thing as well, because I've definitely sacrificed a lot of my kids' childhood with work. I mean, I'm away a lot, I'm working a lot, but I can see the retirement trajectory, right?
Yeah, then you get to enjoy it.
Yeah, and then so I won't be traveling like I am in 5 years, and certainly won't be in 10 years. And in 10 years, my son might have a child, and I'm like, I'm around. I want to do this.
Yeah, it's a balance as well. It is important to show hard work too, to show you're working hard, because that's what they emulate, and that's what they end up doing when they're older. So you can't just. I think there is something to be said for them seeing you working hard. That's okay, and you should feel bad about going away and working as well.
I had the youngest ever guest on this show yesterday.
Who's that? Ben Weeks' kid?
No, Ben Duval.
Oh, Ben Duval's his daughter's insane.
Right.
I was like, you're the best Bitcoiner I've ever spoken to. And you were about 10.
She's 12, right? So were you in Prague? I can't even remember.
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
Because
I just had a drink with her. I bought her a lemonade and we were sat chatting around this table, and the whole table was like, this kid's too much. Brain's too good.
She's a superstar. So I was backstage before she was about to go on, and I was obviously MC. Yeah. And before her was Sailor. And I was thinking, come on. You're putting a 12-year-old after Sailor.
Yeah, no, it doesn't matter for her.
That's a bit much.
You're putting Sailor before the 12-year-old.
Yeah, well, I hadn't seen her presentation at Adopting Bitcoin. And so when she came backstage, honestly, I actually apologized to you. So I was like, I'd kind of already written her off. I was like, yeah, this is neat. You come to do a kids presentation on Bitcoin. Yeah, whatever.
Sweet,
How are you feeling? You nervous?
Me and my friends in school, we talk about Bitcoin.
Whatever, yeah. And I was a bit dismissive, right? But like, not like in my head, but saying to her, like, are you okay? You feeling good? She's fine. She went out and I remember when she started, I was like, what? Yeah. And I walked around and watched it. She blew my mind. So I spoke to Ben and said, she's got to come on. And when she was here, I said, listen, you're not a novelty.
No. It's not a gimmick novelty act. If you were an adult, you would be justifiably successful.
Yeah, you are on here. I've invited you for two reasons. One, out of merit. But two, there is a point here in that I can give this to my daughter and say, listen to this.
Yeah, that's true.
And she's going to care more about that.
That's true. My daughter would be the same as well. And she'd admire her. She'd be like, well, this girl's cool.
Exactly. But I mean, you saw it yesterday. She a couple of times she blew my mind. One time Ben did. Do you know the genesis of her presentation?
No.
So they were going to adopt in Bitcoin in El Salvador. And she said to her dad, Dad, this is weird because I didn't adopt Bitcoin. It's just like always been there. So that's the genesis of her saying, cool. You guys went from Blockbuster to DVD to streaming. Yeah. Well, you've gone from fiat to Bitcoin. Bitcoin's always been there for me. But there was another point. So she were talking about like...
That is mind-blowing.
She were talking about birthdays. She said she always remembers her dad's birthday. I was like, I've got a cool birthday. Mine's October 31st. I was like, not coincidence. White paper day. And she was like, no, it's destiny. And I was like, all right.
Intense.
She is insanely smart. And then when she starts talking about Bitcoin, I'm like, you talk about Bitcoin better than I do.
Yeah. Didn't she go on stage and say like, fuck banks or something? It was her opening remark. I think it was in maybe Amsterdam.
I hope so.
Yeah. She went on stage and she was like, I'm here to talk about Bitcoin and fuck banks. And everyone went, yeah, fuck banks.
12-year-old. We've just somehow started an interview without even introducing you and welcoming you back. So it's quite interesting to go from Nigel Farage to Ben Ark.
Yeah.
This might be the controversial one.
It's a good thing I didn't bump into him in there. Because as I was saying, I was in France the other week and I was in that queue, that big long UK queue. And I was thinking, Nigel Farage. I was almost going to turn around to everyone in the queue and say, right, who voted Brexit? Okay, fuck off. Thanks for this.
Maybe they should have two queues for the voted Brexit, didn't vote Brexit. Yeah,
the 48%ers. Yeah, that we should get to go in the European queue.
I was at Glastonbury when that vote went through, and I'd gone to bed, and when I went to bed, it was like, I don't know if you remember,
it changed.
The vote was we're going to remain.
Yeah,
I was like, I went to bed anyway. Got up in the morning, got the kids up. I went to get some breakfast, as you do with your wellies through the mud, and there's a woman wandering around. She's crying her eyes out, like distraught. And I was like, kids, you just stay there. I'm going to go and see. I was like, are you okay? She's like, no, we're leaving Europe. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't know that was what you were distraught about. And obviously found out we'd left. And I voted. I wrestled with it. I bet you didn't, but I did wrestle with it. I think I had Giacomo Zucco in my ear.
I think the problem is that I don't underestimate Europe's potential to go to war with itself. It did twice in quite close succession. And we can't forget that the European Union was partly formed to stop that from happening. And when you have, countries which are separated and economically separate, then you have things like currency war, which then escalates into real war, and then can turn into world war. And you end up with your populist leaders, much like someone like Nigel Farage, who was a populist leader. And there was a lot of his, a lot of the vote was based on kind of a racist, tapping into a very dark part of society, and sort of venting some of that aggression. So we had the Syrian refugee crisis, and just poor Syrians who, walking across Europe to come to Britain because they thought it was a good place, a good safe place to be. And then you had Nigel Farage attacking that, and and then rallying people against it. So it was that was the thing which made for me it was a no-brainer. We got to vote to stay. It's not that the European Union doesn't need a lot of work, and it's not like it's the best solution, but it stops us. It seems it has stopped us from going to war with ourselves. Which, Well,
that was the switch for me. So I wrestled with it a lot. I was during a time where I was thinking about Bitcoin a lot, thinking about smaller states and individual sovereignty was an idea in my mind, and then national sovereignty. And I was really wrestling with it. And my friend Noel, who listens to the show sometimes, I've called him up. Went to uni with him, but he's 10 years older than me. He's a bit wiser on some of these things than me. And I was talking about the economic reasons and the democratic reasons. And he said, Pete, you're missing the most important thing about the European Union. It's a peace project. And I was like, huh.
Everyone forgot that.
Yeah, well, that's why I voted Remain in the
end. Yeah. I mean, it's just dangerous not to, but there we are. We are where we are. We'll see where we end up. But I mean, I agree with you. There is obviously part of me which, and so we had COVID shortly afterwards, and us being outside of the European Union and be able to move quickly on our feet was actually like benefited us as a country. And then when it comes to currency as well, like I wouldn't advocate that everyone uses the same currency.
Yep.
Per se. It's hard because then you do end up with currency war. But like if you look at the economic crisis, and then you looked at the way the European zone treated the Greeks, and you looked at Iceland, which was in a very similar position, but they were able to just create more money to keep the ball rolling, to keep their economy moving, whereas Greece couldn't do that because they were using the euro. So there is something to be said definitely for countries, because when it comes to a soft currency or a fiat currency, a country producing its own currency, they have different needs and wants at different times. And if you're using a soft currency, which you do have these extra properties and functions of, that you can do things like quantitative easing, you can create more of it, then those countries are going to need that at different points in time. So I'm not sure that decision the euro failed at helping the Greeks during the economic crisis. So that I wrestled with that definitely, and I also wrestled with that idea of anarchism, that you want everything to kind of be separated out and have much more smaller scale democracy, which then scales up. But as you say, it's as a peace project, it's not the best solution, but it's one the best solution we have for now to stop Europe going to war on itself.
As a more rational British European, not so right-wing Bitcoiner, do you feel there's not enough of us? I say us. I mean, I think I'm more centrist, but certainly I have a lot of clashes with the more right-wing or libertarian Bitcoiners. I've got an ongoing debate with Robert Breedlove about whether we're slaves or not at the moment. And I know you're certainly, I think you and I align a bit closer than maybe some of those Bitcoiners. Do you feel like there's less of us, or do you think we're quiet because we get shouted at?
I think it's probably quiet because we get shouted at a little bit more. I'll say that it's kind of that, you kind of need to accept that 90% of everything you believe to be true is probably wrong. And I think that people who are a little bit more pragmatic and question themselves and don't fall for the ideology so much are the sorts of people who are like, am I wrong about this? They question themselves quite a lot. Whereas that ideology of the libertarian, the right-wing libertarian, often there isn't that sense of self-doubt. I mean, of course they'll say it's because they're right, which, okay. But I think, I think that we tend to question ourselves a bit more, and then because they truly believe in what they're saying, and in the rhetoric and in the ideology, they're much more vocal about it, and they're much more comfortable with being vocal about it, because they think, well, this is true and this is right, and those other things are completely evil and wrong, and then because of that, it seemed they're louder. They're much louder than people who maybe are a little bit more pragmatic. But I noticed when I kind of came out of the woodwork and deliberately waved that leftist flag by calling myself the BTC Socialist. This is where half your audience turns off. I noticed a lot of people, like Bitcoiners, came out and said, "Oh, great! I'm really glad that somebody's putting a finger up to the right wingers, because I've been here a long time and I consider myself like a lefty anarchist." Or I think more and more as our community grows and as its gravity kind of pulls in more talent, that we have a much more diverse, like clearly, overtly diverse culture in Bitcoin than we have had. And I think there is something of a death rattle from those libertarians who took ownership over Bitcoin and were like, this is ours. And if everyone does this thing, we will end up with, a libertarian Austrian economics utopia. And it's like, well, and then you find a bunch of other people who come in on board and want to use the technology because it's great.
Yep.
and they imagine a different type of future, with cooperatives and commons and whatever else. So I certainly think that there's a lot more acceptance of diverse opinions and thoughts. And there was a period, like historically, like originally it was magic internet money, and it attracted a lot of lefty anarchist hacker types. And then the libertarians kind of came in because they see this thing which people are making money on, and that initial first impression, which puts the lefty anarchist off, is something which is very attractive to them, which is greed and wealth and all that stuff. Fair enough. And
is greed fair? Is it fair to say greed? Isn't it more free market? Free
market, whatever you want to call it. Like, but there's the things which would put off lefty anarchists. I mean, the lefty anarchists might want a free market, but the kind of the thought leader, the Bitcoin thought leader who's got the Lamborghini or whatever, like sorry, Peter. That's audience capture. You have to do it. It's part of the brand. It's fine. I understand. But that symbolism is something which would put off like someone who's less materially wealth interested and less of a consumer. They're more about the movement and trying to make the world. I know. So I think that there was a point where it attracted a lot of. I mean, we had kind of pragmatic people in the center of Bitcoin, someone like Andreas Antonopoulos, who is very sort of centrist or maybe even left-leaning. I know he spoke about economics and admires that, which is great. But yeah, he did tend to also have some sort of progressive ideas. He left, and then there was kind of like a void, like a vacuum void, like an ideological cultural void, which then people like Safer Dean stepped in. He had that book, which he'd written at that time as well, which a lot of people thought was very good. So yeah, so it's just like a period where it attracted a lot of that mindset of people. But yeah, actually, like I'm here today to talk about Nostr.
Yep.
I think Nostr is doing a great job on that. So obviously, so in Nostr, you can use Zaps, and you can use it to tip people, and people are starting to build products and services utilizing the Zap technology. And so in Costa Rica, I met Rabble. So Rabble was the person who actually employed Jack Dorsey in Twitter. So when they pivoted from whatever it was before, some podcasting thing, to Twitter, he was one of the people who employed Jack Dorsey to be the new CEO of Twitter. So, and he is very much a lefty anarchist type. He's the archetype to what I'm saying. Like, he was someone who never liked Bitcoin and just kind of wrote it off because he looked culturally at Bitcoin as opposed to at the technology and what this payments technology can allow. He also had like a pre-2018 opinion of Bitcoin, which was based on-chain and its carbon footprint. So Bitcoin for him really wasn't for him. So then when his friend Jack tells him about this, because he's a big Scuttlebutt guy. Scuttlebutt's another decentralized social network protocol. He built a bunch of things for Scuttlebutt. And when his friend Jack Dorsey told him about Nostr, he then went on to Nostr and started using Nostr. And then he's like, oh, cool, you can use this thing called Zaps. And what they're using this Lightning Network. Okay, how's this Lightning Network work? He's, wow, this doesn't have the same carbon footprint which Bitcoin once had. Wow, this technology is amazing. I can build these amazing things with it. And now he's very busy, and his life is dedicated to building Nostr solutions.
Love it.
Yeah, absolutely. So going to that conference actually had a wonderful energy because it wasn't just Bitcoin. This is the Costa Rica conference. Yeah, Nostr Rica.
Yeah.
Because it was, say, 50% Bitcoiners, and then the other 50% were just people who were interested in Nostr and they'd heard about Nostr, but they were all talking about Zaps and they're all talking about Bitcoin, and they're all seeing Bitcoin in this new light as just a technology which they can use to build cool stuff with. So that's very refreshing. And every time I've had it a bunch of times when I've gone to conferences, I've met like someone who had a project and they had it on Ethereum, not because they were scammers, but actually they just wanted a certain set of functions which didn't exist on Bitcoin, but now they exist on Bitcoin. With Lightning Network, they've come back to Bitcoin and working on Bitcoin.
Love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's a kind of like an artiness which left Bitcoin, I think, and went off to Ethereum. Like a sort of, there's certainly creatives in Bitcoin. I wouldn't say there's not creatives in Bitcoin, but there was kind of like an arty sect of developer who left and went to Ethereum. And it's kind of a shame. Like we want everyone working on Bitcoin, don't we?
Of course. Yeah.
That's the goal.
Well, I mean, the Nostr thing's really interesting because the first time you and I spoke about it was in that. Do you remember that weird hospital place?
Yeah, it's like 18. I looked it up. It's like 18 months ago.
18 months
2 years
ago,
or something.
with the weird paintings and the bear, the weird place. But
and it's a great interview because we cover a lot of, like now, if you were to talk about, if we were to talk about those things regarding Nostr, it would be interesting because we were talking about its potentiality, like what you could build with Nostr. We talked about markets and replacing Amazon and.
Well, yeah, but when you we had that chat about not Amazon.
Yeah, decentralized Amazon. Yeah.
Amazon. But when we had the chat and you were explaining Nostr to me, like in my head, I was like, yeah, Ben Arc, Nerd Toy, whatever. Yeah, we hear lots about these different technologies,
of course,
these new wallets, these things. They're all niche. Yeah. Not whatever, and then here we are 18 months later, and there is a massive movement around Nostr. I mean, it's really taken off. Which, by the way, Danny said is that Ben can see the future. That's what Danny said. Ben can see the future, but it must be great for you to have seen this traction because you were there at the very start.
Oh, it's incredible, and like it was just a technology which any developer, when they engaged with it, they realized what they could build with it and how useful it was and how it worked. And they would instantly fall in love with it and think it was amazing and want to build things on it. But there was just this network effect which wasn't happening, or was happening, but very, very slowly. Because people would come in and build a great solution. Like I made the first Twitter client.
You did,
which then I think, just it looking like Twitter made a lot of people think, oh, this thing, isn't just a dorky project. You could be used like Twitter. And then Will made Damus, and Damus is a very professional application, Nostr client for Android, another Twitter-like client. So our community was growing, and we had a Telegram group which was slowly growing. But then when Jack Dorsey left Twitter, and wished Elon Musk all the best, I hope Twitter goes well. And on the side, he was going to, tinker away at this blue sky thing he wanted to work on of decentralizing Twitter, which he's always had an interest in, but we couldn't really do while he was the CEO of Twitter. Elon Musk then, sacked half of his mates, and then Jack Dorsey was like, okay, fine, let's go. So he was looking at other social network protocols which could be used to build something like a Twitter in a decentralized way as part of his Blue Sky initiative. And he looked at Mastodon, and Scuttlebutt, and then someone in Twitter on Twitter, they said, "Well, take a look at Nostr." So he said, "Yeah, sure, I'll take a look at Nostr." And just like any, developer who actually looks at Nostr, actually looks at the protocol and how it works, he instantly fell in love with it and thought, "Yeah, this will work. We can build great things with this." And huge hats off to Jack Dorsey at that point in time, because this was the beginning of the year where there really wasn't any. I think Super Testnet's client, I can't remember the name of it. That was the most usable client at the time, but all the clients were broken. Like, the Twitter client I'd made, Peter Jaffa forked it to Branel, and he created this absolutely beautiful piece of software, very technically brilliant, but sadly just wouldn't work because he picked like the wrong local storage database thing. But all the clients were broken. Even like Damus was like buggy. Okay. So, hats off to going and using these clients, realizing they're buggy, but then looking through that and seeing that the protocol itself and how it's just a matter of just, energy. Like people just need a good reason to spend more energy and time on this thing.
So is Blue Sky being built on Nostr?
No, so Blue Sky, it was funny because Blue Sky reached out to us. So Blue Sky, for those who don't know, while Jack Dorsey was working, well, actually, this goes back to the days of Rabble. So at one point, Twitter was pretty decentralized, the way it was, the architecture of Twitter. But obviously the company won out, like the corporation ran out, like the investors, they want something which they have complete control over. And there's always this struggle between Jack Dorsey and Rabble and other people working in Twitter, where they wanted it to be, they understood how important that it be somewhat decentralized, because this is a worldwide platform which people are communicating on, and there needs to be some privacy and some autonomy. But yeah, the corporation won out, and so there was this project called Blue Sky, which a bunch of people were working on, which was this idea of replacing components of Twitter with decentralized platforms, which I think they built, but it's very big and bloaty. I think you can kind of build a Twitter thing with it, but yeah, it's just very, I don't want to say inelegant, but it's quite bulky. Anyway, but there was a period where there wasn't much traction on that project, and it was more of a research project. And that's when I initially reached out to Nostr. But I think Nostr was so small at the time that they just kind of overlooked it.
Right.
So it took for Jack to actually have some time off, I think, for him to take a good look at Nostr and see that this is something which could be used. And so Blue Sky isn't using Nostr, but I think it's incorporated some elements of Nostr. And it's almost a different beast. Like it's specific for building decentralized Twitter. Whereas Nostr is for building a whole bunch of different things. One of those things is a decentralized Twitter. So I'm not sure whether maybe they'll give up on the Blue Sky project at some point.
I think they will. I think the problem they've got is it's not so much technology as audience. You've got to have an audience to have a reason to use something, right? You've got to bootstrap it somehow. And the great thing about Nostr is that there is that kind of alignment with Bitcoiners. So the Bitcoiners are bootstrapping it. Yeah. They're the ones using it. They're the ones driving it forward, and then from there it can grow. And I think the problem with Blue Sky, it's like, well, if you're a Bitcoiner who cares about decentralization, you're going to focus on Nostr, and if you're not, have you got big enough reason to leave X.com to go to Blue Sky? There's not really many people there, so I just think they'll have a bootstrapping issue, and I tend to see these things kind of ending up in a monopoly, and I think Nostr will end up being the monopoly.
Yeah, but a good monopoly.
Yeah,
it's
great
free open source monopoly. It's funny that, isn't it? The way monopolies work. Like if Microsoft ran all the web servers on the planet, we'd all be up in arms. But the fact that this run Linux, which runs all the web servers, so it's like we understand that these two different systems built in two different types of two different ways. That one is good and righteous, and then one is not so good and evil. So it's interesting that just, for the Bitcoiners out there who always, anyway.
Well, you should explain the protocol element again, because I know you did it before when we were on, but I think there is that thing where people are like, are you on Nostr? And they think Damas is Nostr.
Yes. So this goes back to your point about network effect.
Yeah.
Like so if you look at the internet, when the internet kind of started and you had like the BBS boards and forums and stuff, they were kind of interest-centric, and there's lots of different platforms. You'd have to log into all these different platforms. And then it kind of made sense that they were all under one roof. They're all in these big walled gardens. And you get these mega platforms like Twitter and Facebook and all these mega platforms starting to appear on the internet. And it's almost like they had all this gravity, which was created by users, and then the convenience of users all being able to connect with each other. And then also the capital as well. Like, you had the .com bubble and all that. A lot of that money went into creating these mega platforms. So they had this capital to build these mega platforms. And they had this feedback loop, which then just attracted more users. And then you had these huge walled gardens. And then over time, people start to realize that these aren't walled gardens, they're prisons. And there's no freedom of movement, there's no freedom of association. You don't own stuff within that walled garden. It belongs to the garden, whoever owns the garden. As people become more and more disillusioned, they start to flake off, and for whatever reason, they're following some politician and suddenly they get cancelled, or there's someone who they follow gets cancelled, and then they talk about some other platform which they're using. Now, a lot of these platforms, these decentralized social network platforms, a lot of their issues in the past has been that network effect of users. You go there and there's not that many users there, or they're a certain type of user. Well, with the way Nostr works is it's interoperable. So like you say, Nostr isn't Damas. Like, Damas is just on the Nostr protocol. So it's just implementing a certain amount of the rules which should be built in Nostr. So if I post on Amethyst, which is the client I use on my Android phone, and it's really fantastic, then someone on Damas will be able to see that same post. So it's almost like you get the best of both worlds. You can have like a decentralized system, free and open source system, where people have freedom of movement, freedom of association. But when they move, platforms aren't losing their networked effect of users because they can still pull the data down from those users. So it's a really interesting, like, it almost needs to exist this way in order. And then it becomes attractive as it scales. So we got I think it's 500,000 active users at the moment. But that's a statistic from about a month ago, so it's probably more. If a centralized platform or one of these big walled gardens decides to implement Nostr and say if the Twitter allows people to use Nostr, or pulls in notes using Nostr, suddenly they've got 500,000 extra users.
Yeah.
So and that'll be millions in a short period of time, I'm sure, because the way in which the network's growing.
So is that a bit like mobile phones in that you can be on any network, but if you send a text message, you can send, is it?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I mean, so the interoperability is made possible. So basically, Nostr is a collection of these things called NIPs. NIPs are Nostr improvement possibilities. I think that one of Nostr's successes coming from the Bitcoin community is Bitcoiners are good at making protocols. Like we have the BIP system in Bitcoin when people want to make a proposal to improve Bitcoin. And then from Bitcoin, came out the LNURL protocol, which was used in Lightning. So Fiat-Jaff, who built the Nostr protocol, he kind of cut his cloth building the LNURL protocol, and LNURL has LUDs, which are improvements for LNURL. And then, so by the time we get to Nostr, we're pretty good at making protocols. And all Nostr is a collection of NIPs, which are these little standards. So the first standard is, a note. So let me explain the architecture of how Nostr works before I get too much into that, but on hardware-wise. So you have your phone or you have your computer at home, and then you access a client, which you could download and install, or it could be a website or something. And then you go onto that client, and you have a public key and private key. So another thing Bitcoiners are really good at is using public key cryptography. And we're used to using public key cryptography. It doesn't scare us. We're public key cryptographic natives almost, like we're used to it. So anyway, Nostr makes use of a public key and a private key. You have a public key, private key. I have a public key, private key. You have a client, I have a client which you're accessing. I'm just accessing it on a website. You're accessing it on a piece of software you've downloaded on your phone. You create a note, so just some text, I'm sat here with Ben doing a podcast, blah, blah, blah. And then you sign it with your private key. And then you push it up to a relay, a piece of software running on a server called a relay. I'm also connected to that relay, and I'm follow you. So I'm listening to your public key. I'm saying, I want to get any notes Peter signs and pushes up to the relay. I want to get that note. I get that note on my client. My client can easily, because it's been signed by you, I've got your public key. I can easily use your public key to verify that is in fact Peter. Okay, cool. And I follow him. And then, so that's why you can very easily build kind of a Twitter platform, because we're all just signing little notes and proving that somebody's written a note, and then pulling down someone's note if you're following them.
But there's only one note, right? So like Damus or another protocol, they all share the same notes. You couldn't go on Nostr and build a whole new social platform and has its own separate set of notes and ignores it. Oh,
yeah,
you can?
You could, yeah. You can have different note types. Some of them might be long form. There's a really interesting site, Habble, I think it's called, .news, Habble.news. I've got it written down here. Let me just make sure I've got the right name for it, because it's so people might look it up. Habler.news, and that's a long form platform where people write, little blog posts, and they're signed and then pushed up to relays. And then if you're following, you could get that blog post pulled down. Now, it doesn't make much sense for those blog posts to be displayed in Amethyst, which is acting like a Twitter client. It's more kind of conversational.
Though?
No, it can filter different note types. So say with us, for example, so we have a marketplace application client. So instead of signing, little tweets and then pushing them up to relays, so you can connect to more than one relay. Your client can connect to more than one relay, which is an important point. You have a list of products, and then you sign those products and you send those up, and then somebody can buy a product, and we can do it all over the Nostr network. So I think a simple way, it's a bit too simple, it's too simplistic way of explaining it, but Nostr is a dumb server, smart client paradigm. We're used to a smart server, dumb client paradigm. So that where does that put the power? So if you have a smart server, dumb client paradigm, the server administrators, the people owning the corporation, they're the ones with all the power.
Yeah.
If you have a smart client, dumb server paradigm, we're the ones with the power. We have our data. We have control and ownership over our data, cryptographic ownership over our data and what we produce. So it empowers us, it doesn't empower. So it's quite important that those relays, in my mind, that those relays remain fairly dumb. Like they're just passing notes from one person to another. I think it was fairly shortly after making Nostr that we decided that relays should store notes for a little while because it's convenient, that they kind of just store notes for a few weeks or whatever. But it's interesting because if you look at our current social networking platforms like Twitter, for example, it pretends to be conversational format, yeah? However, we know that those tweets are going to be on there forever. So we're kind of guarded. We think about what we're going to say. We're not going to say anything too outlandish because we're not going to talk like, if we're talking in the pub, right? And we say something and then the next day we regret it. I'm like, P, I'm sorry I said that thing. It was really wrong. I thought I was being funny. I wasn't being funny. I was a bit drunk, blah, blah, blah. I was an asshole. Don't know where it came from. And then it's ephemeral. It's gone. You forgive me, it's gone. Whereas Twitter pretends to be conversational, yet it stores everything forever. So most of us are guarded. Even if you don't think you're being guarded, you are being guarded.
You're definitely guarded.
Yeah. Apart from occasionally you get those wild cards, those trumps, and they'll just say whatever they want. They'll use it in a conversational format. So now, and they'll speak freely on it. So what happens is that they seem more real. And you're like, all these other people don't seem real on this platform, whereas this person is just saying stuff like popping off like they would in the pub. They feel more real. So it empowers them quite a lot, like this weird, fake, like not ephemeral conversational format that exists in some of these social network platforms. And then how do they pay for that ability to be able to store all that data? Surveillance capitalism. They use algorithms, they push you in a certain direction so they can sell stuff to you. And we all know surveillance capitalism's bad, or has proved itself to be quite bad. And well, maybe not bad, but it's the real effects of what something like that can cause. We're only just kind of playing out now sociologically, and we're all observing it. So then with Nostr, why Relay is going to store your data? Maybe because you can. So the point of Nostr is it's kind of inconsequential architecture. You can spin up a relay easily. Like in LNbits, we have like a one-click install relay, and you can just create a bunch of relays, as many as you want, and then people can access them. And you can store data, notes and stuff if you want for a period of time, or you can charge people for storing data. So you can say, I'm going to give you a megabyte of free data, but every megabyte after that's going to cost you like 10 Satoshis or something.
Okay.
Or you could charge a sign-up fee. So I'm not going to charge you for storing data for the year, but every year I'm going to make you sign up to it. And it's going to cost you 20,000 Satoshis or something to sign up to it. And then I'll store your data. I don't know how well that business model will work personally, but or maybe the Relay has a policy where they're like, actually, we're going to feed you adverts, but we're going to store your data for free. And if you want that, then apply to us and we'll store you. We'll feed you adverts as part of us storing your data for you. But the point is that the model we have now, which is corrupt and a bit evil, that'll probably still exist. It's just you have a choice as a user to not use that model. So it's the same with the algorithms. Like, I'm really interested in, because algorithms are important, like you want content which is relevant to you. Currently, like I'm on Twitter and my global feed on Twitter, or X, whatever the fuck it's called, my global feed, it's not as good as it used to be. So they've changed the algorithm. And that's annoying. I want to change it back. Like I want to have that choice. So I think what you'll see more in these Nostr clients, these Twitter-like Nostr clients, is that you'll have a choice. You go into settings and you'll be like, I want the Rabble algorithm. And it's an algorithm created by Rabble, and it feeds you content from like, I don't know, there's 3 degrees of separation. So if you're following someone and then one of their friends posts something, then you might get that turn up in your global feed, and then maybe you can tweak it. So there'll be different shared algorithms. So algorithms aren't necessarily bad. They're important for getting useful content, but which you're interested in. But like we don't want, well, maybe some people do, but the point is we have a choice in Nostr, whereas you don't have that choice when it comes to those walled gardens, which are actually in fact prisons.
Well, and you also have that protection of the politicization of technology, which, despite what people think of Nigel Farage, this is what came up. I mean, he had his bank account removed because of who he is and his opinions. We know that. And he talked a lot about the politicization of business, and we've seen it in the US. Certain opinions aren't to be held, or you can be cancelled, or you can be thrown off platforms. And Elon Musk is doing it himself to people. No one can throw you off these platforms.
No, exactly. And if you don't, for whatever reason, say if some client, they have an update where they do start
censoring people.
Yeah, or trying to censor people. It's pretty impossible to be honest. But say you download some non-free and open source Nostr client, and it has a thing in there which gets rid of Nigel Farage's tweets then or notes, then you can just go use another client. We have this in Bitcoin. So, and this is why last time on that podcast 18 months ago when we talked about this, I talked about Bitcoin as a commons where anyone is permissionless. Anyone can build on top of it. It's fine. Like anyone can build products and services on top of it. Anyone can build businesses on top of it. The one thing you can't do is you can't try and co-opt the commons. You can't bring about the tragedy of the commons, which we actively fight. We're always actively fighting in the way we treat Bitcoin. And we're doing the same thing now with Nostr. It's a commons. Anyone can do anything they want on there. They can, make use of it as much as they want, from each their own ability to each their own needs. But you can also, and you can build products and services. But if you try and co-opt the commons, then the community you'll get the blunt end of the community. Well, no one will use you. No one will use your software. So it's a beautiful thing to see, and that's why as a developer and why other developers get excited about it, because like I don't have to ask anyone's permission to build a new version of Twitter. Like I might see Amethyst and I think, okay, that's cool, but I could probably do better. And I could take Amethyst and then I could replicate their UI, but then I could just add a few extra bits to it. So one of the things one of the coolest projects to come out of Nostr the past couple of months is Kieran from Snort Socially made Zap.stream, which is where you can pay for a service to host a video file for you. And then people per minute of video, and then people can pay to stream it or tip as well, and then that's how you pay for the hosting of the thing. And then you can all discuss the video in like a thread. So he made Zap.stream, which is a really interesting concept and site. Everyone should go check it out. But Vitor because it's interoperable, this is a NIP basically, and because we can, other clients it's interoperable, so other clients can make use of it. Vitor from Amethyst, so I went into Amethyst and there's just an extra little button, and I click on it, and then suddenly I've got these video feeds of people streaming videos, and then all these people commenting and stuff. And I'm thinking, so now when I go on Amethyst, and then because I cross post on Amethyst and Twitter, I'm like, this is legitimately a better experience. It's, regardless of all the ideological blah blah blah, free and open source, decentralized, Elon Musk's evil, whatever. Like this is actually a better platform. It's actually a better piece of software. It works better. And it's more interesting. But if I didn't like it and they did something I didn't like and there was an update I didn't like, I'll just go use someone else's client. It's freedom of association. Yeah,
that's super interesting. Super interesting you say that, because I'm not cross posting, but sometimes I am, but I'm using them with different things. And I go in waves. I think Twitter. I'm just going to call it Twitter because it is.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I consider it more like a marketing platform.
Yeah.
Or a place to just like shout our opinion. Whereas I see Damus as a place I go, again, marketing still, because I'm still sharing. Here's a show I've made with Ben Ark, please listen. But I'm also, I think, is a better source of replies to questions, because I think that there's like higher signal. And so you tend to get a better quality reply. You don't have to go, right, here's my question. Right, here's 3 insults, 2 adverts, and 5 bits of spam.
Yeah.
To get through. Oh yeah, and there's a couple of bits here. It is signal, maybe an insult, signal. And so at the moment, the audience is better. I like it. I like it more. And so I've really enjoyed using Damus. I'm not using it out of sympathy because it's. Because I'm a Bitcoiner. I think some people, there's that I'm a Bitcoiner.
It's legitimately a good piece of software.
Legitimately a good piece of software.
And it's mad that hack can exist without Twitter, the corporation.
It's crazy. My only thing is I don't want to, this is where I trigger Bitcoiners, but I don't want to know or understand what relays are. I just want to open it and it works.
Yeah.
I just want to forget about that stuff.
This is something I have a bugbear with. So you'll download something like Damus and it will connect to like 20 different relays. Like default, and then that's a lot of like drains your battery because you've got 20 different WebSockets connected to 20 different servers.
I don't even know what this means.
Yeah, you don't even know what this means, and you shouldn't have to. Well, actually, like Nostr is very simple, and it's just a collection of technologies which came together so it could exist. So like
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin's the same, yeah. They came together at the right time so it could exist. Like WebSockets have been around for a while. It's an amazing technology, but all the libraries were kind of buggy. Like you'd have to wrangle them. You'd have to keep the connection open. All a WebSocket is like a bidirectional data pipe which you make with a server or another computer, and you can share data back and forth, and at the speed of light. And there's no get and post requests. It's just
right. Okay.
So you connect that pipe to that relay. I connect that pipe to that relay, and then we just send stuff up and down to it, and then it's sending stuff back. So there's a few hops where it goes from me to relay to you, but it's the speed of light. So I write something, bing, you've got it.
Are there any chances that I don't see messages because I'm not connected to the right relay?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So that is a definitely a difference between that and say Twitter. You'd expect to see everything if you wanted to.
Yeah. But then that's kind of that's kind of one of its intentional properties. Is that me, for example? I want a vanilla Twitter experience or vanilla Amethyst experience, Nostr experience. I don't want to see gross stuff. I just want to see, and actually, I'm really impressed with Amethyst because I've not seen anything on there which has made me go,
No, what I mean is more like
no, but this is part of it. Like
I want to see Ben Arc stuff, but will there sometimes because I don't know that we're on different relays, and maybe I will miss Ben Arc stuff sometimes.
Yeah, well, relays can share can share information, but there's a couple of big relays which people are going to use, and that's okay. And maybe everyone's just using one relay, right? One big fat relay, right? That wouldn't be so good. But maybe everyone is just using, Elon Musk's relay, and everyone's enjoying it. And then suddenly, because he's got VCs involved, or whatever, or he has investors, he has to start. Or he's he's operating within a country. He has to start moderating and cancelling some people and not allowing some posts to go through, which a relay can do. They can have moderation policies. The point is it's inconsequential to spin up another relay. It's easy to spin up another relay. So you just spin up another relay, people move to that. Right. So you've always got this thing of just these, it's like whack-a-mole. It's really easy to spin up relays. And maybe you'll just have a relay for friends and family, which just your friends and family access. And maybe you have granular in your client where you're like, I'm going to post something, but I only want to see friends and family have this. Not many clients do this. No, I don't think any clients do this currently, but I'm sure it'll be something added at some point. You could just then post to that relay for people who are close to you, if you want to.
Right.
Or you can post those ones which are connected to the whole world and they're big fat relays. But as soon as it's freedom of association, again, it's just like the clients, as soon as a relay starts acting in a way which a lot of people disagree with, they're just shared users. So there's like this free market of relays, people operating these relays. And like I say, they're really, really easy to spin up. We make them intentionally very, very easy to spin up. It's like Pirate Bay. You're never going to kill Pirate Bay. It's resilience. So it's censorship resistance through resilience. That's what I like to say.
So XX.com, I hate fucking calling it that. But it's been a great advert for Nostr over and over again.
It's very interesting because you have these, and with the Zuckerberg thing as well, with the Threads thing, it's almost like you've got these 3 billionaires battling it out on the global stage. And Elon's trying to make this everything app, trying to copy the WeChat model. And WeChat's successful because the Chinese trust their government and they know that WeChat's basically run by the government. Whereas is the world...
Trust their government or
the Chinese the Chinese generally do, they're pretty trusting of their government, the majority of them, which is why people will happily use something like WeChat. And it's like, oh, do you know that all this information is getting sent to government? And they're like, oh yeah, it's fine, we trust them. Whereas I'm not sure that kind of sentiment exists in the rest of the world, and certainly not for a corporation run by
Elon has a lot of trust.
He does have a lot of trust. Yeah, we will have some users for sure, but when it comes to building an everything app, an Orwellian everything app in your pocket, listening to everything you say and just using it everywhere, I'm not sure a lot of people will feel comfortable with that. More and more people are getting. It's easy to be cynical, but more and more people are aware of privacy concerns. Yep. If you remember, the BlackBerry when we first got encrypted messaging on a BlackBerry, and everyone was like, well, why do you need encrypted messaging for? Only drug dealers will use it. And now it's normal people will be like, oh yeah, use WhatsApp, that's encrypted, or use this Signal, it's encrypted. So I think these concepts are making their way into just regular normal society. And Nostr, that's the everything app of freedom. You can do everything with it, but it's all based on freedom. Whereas something like X isn't. It's that walled garden. It's that prison. A very pretty walled garden.
Odell convinced me to get rid of my blue check.
Did he? Why? I don't know what the blue check is.
So
we have to do an iris scan.
Yeah. Well, it's Elon's. So you used to get a blue check if you were some kind of known person or some kind of media personality, and it was useful because all these scammers who create coins.
Yeah, you probably get more visibility anyway. It would put you out there more, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, look, it was a bit like, the elites and the peasants, right? But it was useful. It was a useful thing to have when I had it. And then the blue check I ended up paying for when you had to pay for it because I liked longer posts, I liked being able to edit. But now it's a whole part of the Twitter strategy. And I think Elon's saying it's to get rid of bots, and he's got multiple reasons to have it. Realistically, he needs to have 100 million people paying $8 a month.
Or to make it viable business.
To make it a viable business. He borrowed $44 billion to buy it. I mean, servicing the debt alone, God knows what that is. Matt Odell convinced me, you should not have to give up your privacy and KYC information to use a platform like this.
Yeah.
And so I got rid of it. Now I keep my blue check hasn't gone. I actually found out why today because I paid an annual subscription and it doesn't run out to April 24. So I've actually got my blue check until April 24.
You're wearing it with shame.
Yeah, I am wearing it with shame.
Like flair.
But I noticed MVK's just got rid of his. And
maybe if you get in contact with Twitter and say, look, I really don't want this blue tick.
Yeah, please get rid of my blue
check.
Get
rid of it.
But MVK just got rid of his. I think Marty's got rid of it. I think people are gradually getting rid of them. And I think it might, I think it could be a badge of dishonor.
Yeah, to wear one,
yeah.
He sold his soul because he wants the likes. Yeah.
I just don't trust where the whole platform's going now anymore. I mean, I'll use it.
Well, we were talking about the shadow banning thing. Like, I did an experiment. I kept noticing that when I tweeted stuff out about Nostr, like I'm not being an egotist or anything, but if I post something on Twitter, within it's like you get a certain amount of likes in the first 5-10 minutes, whatever. Like, even if it's a crap post, you get a couple of likes quite early on. Well, I just noticed if I ever posted like Nostr, or hashtag Nostr, I would get no likes. And I'd have this post out there for like half an hour and it's got no likes. And I'm like, people like Nostr, why? And it was cool stuff I'm posting. I'm posting like about Black Coffee who works with us. He made a lamp which would light up when you get zapped. So it's a lot like with the hardware stuff I do, but it's specifically for zaps. And it's actually connecting to the Nostr network. It's a little microcontroller connecting to a relay. It's cool stuff, right? So I'm like, I posted something about that. People would like that. And it had 0 likes, and I'm like, this is weird. So then underneath it, I posted pretty much the same post. So afterwards, I posted pretty much the same post, but with Nostr, I just split the letters up rather than have it as one word. And then I got a bunch of likes, and I'm like, okay, so there is, but this is you don't know what they're doing, you don't know what the algorithm, you don't know how it's working, and you're just beholden to them.
But you know why? I mean, look, it's exactly what happened when Substack launched theirs called Notes as well.
What's that? So I don't know.
Substack is the subscription platform where you can subscribe to content creators.
It's
pretty cool.
Yeah.
I followed Doomberg on there, for example. Had him on the show recently. He was talking about it. I mean, he's literally left Twitter. Do you know Doomberg? Big Green Chicken.
No.
Writes really just interesting observational pieces on all kinds of stuff. And so they were using Substack. That's the way they monetize what they do. They write content. I pay $300 a year. And I get all their emails and their articles, right? And Substack launched something called Notes, which is a bit similar to Twitter in that not only are people now writing these long form blog pieces, they actually can write little notes. I'm pretty sure it's called Notes.
Well, that's recently.
Well, yeah, recent. So what happened is I can't remember exactly what happened, but I'm almost certain Twitter started blocking access to people posting Substack articles on the website. They basically didn't want people to leave the platform to go elsewhere, which obviously is bullshit. And so I wouldn't be surprised if it's basically protectionism, isn't it?
You would do if it's your platform and, like you say, it's your business. But
hold on. But think about it like this: Twitter is a place which is the
Agora, the world's Agora, where we can all exchange ideas freely.
Yeah, and that means sharing links, whether it's the BBC News or CNN or from, I don't know, from an article somebody's written on Substack to.
Well, this is what we said 18 months ago. Like,
blocking links.
Shouldn't something like that not be owned by one corporation and controlled by one person? And in a jurisdiction which can be leaned on, by a government, should it not be a commons? And lo and behold, here we are. 18 months later.
And the really interesting thing about that is that, again, I was talking about this, Danny, earlier. So, Bitcoin solved the money problem, the decentralization of money and the centralized control. And with Nostr, like I say, a lot of people think it's social media and it solved that, but actually, we were starting to say, okay, what other things are there where we've seen this censorship or this central control that's become an issue? So, for example, this question for you really, could you do GoFundMe on Nostr?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course.
Okay, so there's.
I think it probably already exists. Like
Right.
this is how rapidly the ecosystem's developing now. The second URL I ever registered nostr.com, and the second one I registered was Nostrify because I wanted to make a Spotify on Nostr. I never got around to it, and then I was thinking about resuscitating that project now, and I wanted to make like a kind of a goofy. I wanted to have it like Napster, like a peer-to-peer thing. But anyway, so I just do some searching, and people are already building. There's a bunch of people building like music sharing platforms, which are like Spotify. I want to go on a client and just like listen to songs and stuff. And I personally believe that piracy is a good thing for music and film industry. So the
hold on, pause. We'll come back to that. Why?
Well, because
it's not the artists aren't happy about it. Metallica weren't happy about it.
Yeah, they weren't happy about it, but then it forced them to start touring again, and then they start producing more music, and that's better for fans. And maybe that's the way they earn money is by touring, and they fill out massive stadiums and get paid millions. So why are they complaining? They can't rest on those CD dollars anymore, and that's probably a good thing for them.
Yeah.
And the same with I made same bunch of bands, like they got back together, they started having to perform because they couldn't rest on the.
What about film piracy though? Because film piracy,
more people are interested in film than they ever have been, and the ability to make films is far cheaper than ever has been.
Okay. Cool, love it.
And how many cinemas do you see closing down? Like cinemas are still doing well. There's more people in cinemas than there were, when piracy was less of a thing.
Post-pandemic, I don't think so. I think cinemas are struggling.
Because maybe a part of the COVID thing, but
it is. It's this straight.
But it's also we didn't start that fight. Like we were being charged 15 quid for a DVD, like a crappy little floppy piece of plastic DVD, which would scratch and you wouldn't be able to watch the film after a year. So they shouldn't have done that. They should have, and if it weren't for piracy, you wouldn't have Spotify, you wouldn't have Netflix, you wouldn't have any of that stuff. You wouldn't have any of those streaming services. So it's a way of marching with your feet is to just opt out and just to pirate. And I think it's a good thing.
No, look, I'm a fan. I love Napster. I remember the first time I discovered it, I was like, what do you mean I can get any song I want instantly? This is amazing. I used to spend a lot of money on CDs. I would buy 30 CDs a month. Yeah, a fortune. I was spending hundreds of pounds.
Yeah.
Now I spend £15 a month, whatever it is, for Spotify, and have all that music.
Yeah.
Available to me instantly. It is genuinely brilliant.
And that is the information revolution right there.
Yeah. So you can do GoFundMe, which would be great because we had the situation what happened in Canada where GoFundMe funds were stolen by the government. I guess you can do Patreon. Are we basically saying you can build almost anything on the internet?
There's a lot of stuff. So I think, my personal connection with Nostr is I made an LNbits extension early on in LNbits to show that you can make a proof of concept. That was called Diagonally. And that was
tell me about that.
Yeah, it was a censorship-resistant marketplace where you had to store the products and then you would, sign it, send it up somewhere, and then that would display it and people could access it. And the idea was resilience through being, easy to spin up. So if someone took out the front-end marketplace, which is just like a dumb, web page which just populates full of data from people, from merchants, then it was like Pirate Bay. It wouldn't really matter. You could just spin up another one somewhere else. No one's inconvenienced by it. The merchant isn't, the customer isn't, because you own all the data. So you have all your ratings and everything. So I made that for LNbits, and then the person who really saw value in it was Jaff, and he helped me work to turn it into something of a protocol, but nothing really happened with it. And then it was months later, then he got in contact and said, oh, here's, Nostr. And I was like, oh, that's like Diagonally. He said, yeah, that's one of the things which went into the creation of it. And I was like, so I had some involvement in its creation, and that idea of resilience, censorship resistance through resilience, I think is probably the key point. But so I was instantly sold on Nostr, and then I was like, well, cool, I'll build the Diagonally thing on Nostr now. And that only, we didn't do it straight away because we had to do a bunch of other stuff in LNbits, but we've got it now, and we've got, the censorship, like the issue of censorship resistant marketplaces no longer exists. Like you can do it now. We have a NIP 15, I think it is, for marketplaces. and it's interoperable. There's a bunch of other clients which are implementing it. There's a couple of like social network clients which are thinking of implementing it, so they could, because clearly, having a Facebook Marketplace is having a social network attached to selling stuff is powerful. People like it. So there's a couple of social networks which are thinking, clients which are thinking of using it. We have a marketplace client, Vlad Stan, who's been doing the majority of the work in LNbits on that. He's made, it's more like kind of a Etsy experience now. And man, it's really beautiful. Like you go, it doesn't, like, it's just like Amethyst as a social, or Damus as an actual, social media piece of software. It feels good. Like it's a good user experience. And it works as well. And of course, Bitcoin is the best payment rails for something like that. So we built the marketplace thing, which is great. I'm interested in that because I want more of the value of what somebody sells to go to the actual merchant, the producer, rather than going to making Jeff Bezos the richest person on the planet. But yeah, we spoke in that last podcast. We spoke about Uber. Making a decentralized Uber, which would be easy to do. And there's a couple of people who've tried to made like proof of concepts. But I'd love to see like an actual functional Uber. And then we spoke about how that could easily be used with the sex work industry.
Yeah.
I actually it was about a year ago, there's a sex worker in Bitcoin called, I can't remember her name, but she wrote a book called Bitcoin for Sex Workers. And I always think it's like an industry, a huge industry, which clearly is making use of our technology, but we don't directly build stuff for, which we probably should. Because like they are often unbanked, particularly like in places like the US and stuff. Yeah. They're unbanked and there's all these problems. So I spoke to her and I talked to her about that idea of of workers being able to communicate with customers and then being able to exchange services, and then also so it's reviews on both sides of the transaction, which is really interesting and is really good for like the safety of sex workers, because they could say, well, they only want to see clients who have X amount of reviews and a certain rating or whatever.
Well, that goes back to the Silk Road days, whereby my background. That's how I discovered Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
And one of the big issues with drugs is people putting all kinds of shit in them. There's a massive issue. With
the review thing's great. Like
the review thing was unbelievable.
They would guide each other through like taking drugs as well, which is.
Yeah, I mean, it was just
a big support network there, wasn't there?
Look, there is a major issue with cocaine at the moment. Yeah. I mean, I'm 10 years since I've done it, but I know these issues, right? If there's fentanyl and cocaine, you are risking dying. You just risking dying.
It's like a tiny little gram of it and you're dead.
And they're cutting it with it regularly. Yeah. There was those 4 comedians in LA who had got some cocaine, they had a party, whatever, 3 died. This is a huge, huge issue. And it's because there's no honor in street dealing. But when they took it into the Silk Road environment, even the I can't remember what they're called, the Drug Policy Alliance said it
was a good thing for users. Yeah.
Well, it's for both sides of the party. It took violence out of the equation. Yeah. But you also had the review systems. That means you were incentivized to produce a good quality product because you wanted to be top of the reviews because you could charge more. Yeah. And so everyone was happy. So this kind of situation.
But then the problem with Silk Road is when it gets taken out, all those merchants who built up those reviews and then all those customers who built those reviews, it's gone.
Yeah.
Whereas if with Nostr, because it's interoperable, it'd be pointless to take out like our marketplace client because it's just like it's like an empty shell until you populate it full of product data from people's public keys. But if for whatever reason, a disillusioned government was able to take it out, like take out the repo for it, it doesn't really matter. Like you could just spin up another repo somewhere else for, another client somewhere else somebody could access, or you could run it locally. It was quite interesting because when we were making Nostr Market, we were testing it. And Vlad, I bought something from Vlad. So he was running the software locally on his computer. I was accessing the marketplace locally on my computer. And then I bought something from him, both locally with just, without just connecting to this relay. And it was really interesting to not have to be on a website somewhere doing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's that's just like Nostr solved the problem of free press. Like now everyone in the world has access to free press, can spin up a relay, can run a client, and then can access can publish freely. Whereas that hasn't existed like in a uniform way before. Like it does now. And the same with the marketplace thing, it's fixed that.
Does it fix the rug issue? So what was happening after the Silk Road we got multiple different
because they escrow funds and steal the funds. All the funds are in their wallets. Whereas with our Nostr market, your funds are with your wallet. You have, it's connected to your Lightning wallet or whatever you connected your LNbits to or whatever. But you could connect it to, you could give it an LN URL, and then it could use that for creating invoices. So no, it's dependent. If you want to have a custodial service like Wallet Satoshi manage all of your funds, then Wallet Satoshi is a separate thing, could rug pull you. But no, it's not inherent to the marketplace itself like it was in those other, like Silk Road 2 and whatever.
Sheep Market, wherever the Alpha something. They would spin it up. Then once it got a certain amount of traction, they would rug everyone and disappear.
And everyone kind of knew it was going to happen as well. They were just they would use it and they'd be like, any moment we're going to get rug pulled. It's a bit like using Bitcoin exchanges now, isn't it?
Well, I had 3 Bitcoin on Silk Road when it went down.
Did you?
I keep mentioning this. Tim Draper owes me 3 Bitcoin.
Maybe he might give it you back.
I don't think so.
I wanted to mention this because we didn't. There was a point where I could have covered it, but I didn't. John Nash, who's relevant to Bitcoiners, should be relevant to Bitcoiners because he's one of the founding fathers of game theory and important cryptographer as well. He had a paper later on in life. It was called Mind on Strike, which is very, very interesting. And it's about when you put a human mind in any kind of oppressive environment, it will just refuse to think. And this is what he experienced when he was doing maths, and he found himself, because he's quite, because of his psychosis, he wanted his mind to be free so he could really explore ideas, but he found that some of the environments he was in were very oppressive and they wouldn't let him explore those ideas. I think it's like if you've ever had an oppressive boss or like an exploitative boss or partner who's been abusive or whatever, you'll find that you make more mistakes. Like if you've got someone like breathing down your neck and that you feel it, and then you're making mistakes, and you're like, why am I being so goofy? Like I'm not like this outside of this environment. So in John Nash's paper, he was talking about how that exists in certain work environments, and that minds can't be free unless they're in a free environment. And I think that exists in social networks as well and on computers. And even though you feel, and there's this illusion of freedom, which exists in something like Twitter, in order to have actual free thought, like you need to know that those tools which you're using are free platforms.
YouTube's a better example. There's a 3 strike rule, and you don't know when you might
you don't know what the policies are.
You don't know what the policy is, and
you
there's
have a
no
multi-million-pound business, and then suddenly
done.
That's it.
And so I know factually people, they even discussing COVID. I'm not in the COVID debate right now. I'm just saying even saying that word can get them a strike.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. So people avoid stuff now, or people are censoring stuff, and YouTube is an important channel for people. Yeah,
it's interesting, like society having to grapple with diverse opinions, because before, like, if you had quite diverse and extreme opinions, it was hard for other people to seek those things out. They would have to go and find that underground magazine or something, or send off for those CDs by that thought leader producing that content for that particular topic. Whereas now we've all got access to it. So there's this, like, I think it's just something humans are going to have to learn to deal with, that they can have instant access to things which they disagree with. But that doesn't mean
it's the end of the world.
Yeah, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world like it's always been. And it doesn't mean that they have to disagree with it all the time. Like, it's the new world. Like, this is the way the world works now. You're going to be confronted with things you really strongly disagree with, and you can voice your disagreement with it. But you can't get too offended. Like, it just exists in the same airspace where you exist. Whereas before, you were kind of insulated from that stuff just by it being hard to get to, or maybe moderation policies in newspapers and televisions and whatever, and on television. So it's just something people have got to grapple with. They are grappling with it, and YouTube is another example of something we should really be. Well, there should be an alternative platform. It's kind of hard to do because of the size of the files. Like, how are you going to pay to store those things on some relay somewhere? So this is why the Zap stream's quite interesting. Zap.stream's quite interesting, which Kieran's made, because it's kind of more that value for value concept, I guess. I'm not sure how successful it'll be. I'm sure it'll be successful, but I'm not sure how successful. I think we'll always have a YouTube, and it's storing that data. Maybe as data storage becomes cheaper.
Who knows? So look, we have Rumble as well now, which seems to be the alternative.
There's some platforms you're trying to
So do you? I mean, is Nostr really is that just the decentralization of everything now? Is that what we've done? Nostr is enabled anything now, almost anything, which is a service or some kind of messaging based service or product based service. Yeah, I don't think you're going to create. You're maybe not going to create Google Sheets in Nostr, but unless you tell me you can. But yeah, is that these can all now be created?
I wouldn't say everything, but I mean, it's a lot of stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of things you could replace just with like Nostr clients connecting to relays. And the relays don't even have to be like, they're not specific relays for a marketplace or a specific relay for social network. They're just these relays which are just passing data from one. It's a miracle of public key cryptography. It's actually quite interesting. Like, I think there was that blockchain fetishism which happened when people learned about the tools which Bitcoin's made out of, one of them being public key cryptography. And then they conflated that with blockchain. And there's all these ideas for blockchain projects. I'm going to make a decentralized cube using blockchain.
Yeah.
And they were kind of on the right track. Like, the tools are there. They don't need the blockchain stuff. Get rid of that. That's cumbersome and doesn't work properly. Like, it's the public key cryptography which makes those things possible. So I think people had a natural intuition that there was something in this tool set which means we could decentralize all these things. But it turned into blockchain fetishism. I quite like Nostr because it's like, like if that were a project made out of, say, the Ethereum community, then there would be ICOs, there would be, a coin.
You have to want to do it.
Yeah, whereas with Nostr, it's like it's just a bunch of dorks doing it for free, for fun, you know what I mean? So it's yeah. And also the other way of looking at it as well, like with this apps thing, was we were asking Twitter for so long to integrate Bitcoin. Eventually, we just got fed up and we just made our own Twitter and put Bitcoin in it.
Well, in fairness, Jack Mallers got there at one point. I don't know if that's all been removed now.
What's that?
We had the Bitcoin payments via Strike within Twitter.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Did that exist? I don't know.
It did. It was kind of cool. I just don't think it really took off. I think that was more of a Dorsey Mallers kind of project. It was very cool the way it worked. It's super cool that both Jacks made it happen. I just can't see it being a Elon thing. I would assume he's removed it and probably waiting to bring in Doge or X coin.
Make their own coin, weren't they? Probably Tesla coin or something.
Fucking gross. Or PayPal coin or
something. Or we might do something good. You might do like an eCash thing, and that'd be good.
No, we won't.
Huh?
No, we won't.
But we got to be prepared for it. But yeah, no, it makes more sense just to use Bitcoin, to integrate Bitcoin, use Bitcoin on there. But yeah, yeah.
The world of Nostr is
growing. Of Nostr is very big. It's too big now to keep up with before you could keep up with it. It's just like Bitcoin. Before you could keep up with it, now you can't keep up with the amount of development which is happening.
The amount of times people keep saying to me, you need to launch what Nostr did. I was like, no, this is all one show.
Yeah.
You just have it all together. We need to get rid of Bitcoin, like I was talking to you about it earlier. But then how important is Bitcoin to Nostr, and how important is Nostr to Bitcoin?
Well,
how symbiotic is that?
So I was like an outspoken critic of the zapping stuff because I didn't think it was implemented. I thought there's a more elegant way it could be implemented, which probably require more thought, but it might in a more Nostr native way. Because where you have that, that dumb server smart client thing, suddenly you're having to use a smart server to enable zaps, and I'm like, we can do this in more of a Nostr centric way. I think with a little bit more thought. But it's great, like it's showing what you can do, like the potentiality to have that inside within a social network. And also like, so early on in the Telegram group, in the Nostr Telegram group, if you spoke about Bitcoin too much, because a lot of Bitcoiners coming in and going, doing that ridiculous like glass-eyed evangelism of Bitcoin, and we're like, we're all Bitcoiners, shut up. But they would get banned because there were some people in there who weren't Bitcoiners and it was pissing them off. Like there were some very talented computer scientists who were very interested in Nostr pretty early on. I don't know how they got to it. Maybe it was VHS connections, whatever, I don't know. But they were involved in Nostr pretty early on. And it's pissing them off, like this Bitcoin talk. So that people literally got banned out of the Telegram group for talking too much Bitcoin shit.
That's fascinating.
Whereas now, so it's very important. Like I almost want to see people putting shitcoins on Nostr, just because it's like Nostr is not Bitcoin.
Yeah,
and it will not, because if Bitcoin fails, it's never going to fail. We all know it's never going to fail. But if say something happened with Bitcoin, it could impact their Nostr, and it shouldn't. Like they should be they're separate things. They do go together very well. It's like toast and
you don't really want sugar,
butter and honey. Like it's like us with the marketplace thing. Like it makes perfect sense to use Bitcoin. And like with the zapping thing, and me sending a small amount of value to you to say I like your stuff, like Bitcoin makes sense, and using it on the Lightning Network makes sense. But Nostr isn't Bitcoin. It's important to remember that.
Yeah. So I post on Damas, and people keep zapping me, and I still don't get the incentive why people do. It's brilliant that they do. Yeah. And I always give those sats away every now and again. I think last time it was a conference to a kid, I just gave him all my sats.
Yeah, cool.
But I read stuff and I never think to zap someone to say, well done.
No.
So I don't get the mindset of people to do that. But actually what I really want is micropayments for single articles. That's what, zap that, give me that article.
Yeah, maybe you could paywall like a note and you could just be like, zap it and then you could access it. I don't know if that would work really, but...
Well, you know how like when you're reading an article and it's, maybe you're on, I don't know.
Oh, like yours or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, I never really use that, but I know what you mean. But let me think of something more like...
Paywall articles are ridiculous, like Financial Times.
Yeah, Financial Times. So you click there, it's like, right, now I have to subscribe. Right, here's all, I have to create an account.
But we have a WordPress extension for LNbits where you can just, you put the little read more thing in the WordPress. So when you have your WordPress blog post or whatever in WordPress, say you write an article in WordPress, and then you put a little read more tag, and then that does that thing where you can see the first bit and then it blurs out and you can't see the rest of it until you like pay for a subscription or something. Well, we have somewhere there's an LNbits extension for WordPress where you could put pay to read more and then an amount, and then it will just, you'll get the blurred out bit and then you click on a thing and it'll generate an invoice and you pay and it just goes boop and unlocks
that's what I want. I just want to press a button and it zap and it gives me the article.
I think we should all actively like push for something like the Financial Times on like the white paper day or something, just as an experiment.
Show them.
To say, look, just for this one day, do one article about Bitcoin where you unlock the article by using Bitcoin.
Do you know about my fallout with them?
No.
So they, I did an interview on one of their podcasts, and I'm not the best talker on Bitcoin. I think I'm one of the best question askers, but not answerers. But anyway, I did it, and it was their second biggest podcast of the year. I don't know what their first one was, but it was massive for them. It wasn't because of me. It's because it was Bitcoin. It was during a rally. People, when they're hungry during that time. And so ended up speaking to their editorial team. They're saying, we'd like you to write a piece for the Financial Times. This could potentially become a column, yada, yada. So I wrote them a piece. It was, I thought, a very, very solid piece.
Nice.
And the editor came back with amends, which happens. Yeah, I get it, that happens. I spoke to Alex Gladstein about it. He said, yeah, get used to that happens. But they did it 4 times. It took over a month. And they watered this article down to nothing. It just didn't mean anything by the end.
Took all the juicy bits out.
Yeah. And it's just, I was like, this is no meaning anymore.
Yeah,
so,
you write the bloody article if you want.
Yeah, so I just pulled it in the end. I said, no, fuck yeah. And so I still think... And it's wrong of them as a financial paper, but I still think we're going to keep Bitcoin over there.
Well, yeah, because I mean, their legacy user is, to legacy finance, isn't it? But and Bitcoin is directly challenging legacy finance. They're starting to let it in, the Trojan in, which they shouldn't do, but they are starting to let it in. But I can see why the Financial Times are like worried of its impact on the financial world. And if they promote it, because that's what it's for. It's distant technology, isn't it? Like, I'm amazed Bitcoin's got so far without people trying to regulate it. And now it's beyond regulation. It is beyond regulation. It's too big to regulate. Or who said that? Someone in America, one of the regulators.
Could we use Nostr zaps at the football club at all? If we had a game that was streaming and a player scores, can we zap the player?
Yeah,
How could we do that?
All they need, and this is beautiful actually, because historically with Bitcoin stuff, it's like, they just need to download this Bitcoin wallet and blah, 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 and put the LN URL on the thing, blah, blah, blah. All your football players need to do is say to them, download Amethyst, download Damas, make a profile, right? And then just give me your public keys or whatever. And then you could just display them. Oh no, wait there. You could just make people like me aware of their public keys. And then I could just zap them every time they score a goal or whatever. Or you could publish it. You could say, so-and-so scored a goal, here's their public key. And then everyone goes, wait, and they'll pile in and start zapping them.
Bear in mind they're watching this stream.
Yeah.
So if I post a Lightning QR code for their Lightning wallet, that's very easy. Someone on their phone to go scan.
Yeah, like an LNURL pay thing. You could do that easily.
Is there a zap version of like...
I wanted there to be a zap version of like an LNURL QR codey thing, totally. But no, there isn't. But the way I would do it is I would say, when you're watching, I don't know, have I got news for you? And you got the little app whatever it is at the bottom, so you can follow the conversation on Twitter. I would make an account for the football club on Nostr.
Goal scored.
Yeah, and then I would tell people like, this is, give it a NIP 05, you know, so Bedford FC at whatever, and then go here and like, you know, when there's a game on, you say, right, everyone follow the game. We're going to do live updates on here, and then every time someone scores, you say, oh, they've scored. Give them a tip because they scored, well done to them, and then all the Bitcoiners will pile in, start tipping them, and then your players they've got Damus installed, they've got Damus on their phone, they've just got their public key, private key. They'll get their apps, won't they?
We need to do that. Do you know what?
That'd be lovely. I really want to do like an R&D.
Can you become our Bitcoin director at the football club?
I'd love to do some R&D stuff at the football club.
Can you just become our Bitcoin director and just handle all the Bitcoin stuff?
That'd be ace, yeah.
Have you got the time?
No, but I mean, I can have the time as soon as in about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So then, yes, absolutely.
Well, I'm off to Latvia, Australia, Lebanon, first 3 weeks of September.
Yeah.
We should meet after that.
I'm all over the place as well because I got the Nostr Asia thing as well. So that's in November. But no, there's two things I want to do, right?
Yeah.
And this is like incubators for solutions, because for us, we make stuff, but it really is real world feedback where we actually make the good stuff, you know?
Yeah.
So I want to click in with a restaurant to because I think we need better points of sale. Like, in restaurants you have the restaurant management systems where you can select tables and products and stuff. We need that. We need an extension for that kind of thing. But then also we need, like, it's nice to have somewhere where we can showcase the ATMs, the point of sale, the Bitcoin switch stuff, the Zap thing. So you could have it so when football players get zapped, you could have like some things turning on. You know, like we could do all sorts of interesting things. So maybe like me and Black Coffee could come down and we could stay in Bedford for a couple of days and we could work on some stuff, bring a bunch of things down as well to like experiences, you know?
Yeah, well, there's a few things we need. Like, we're not good enough on the Bitcoin side of things and people paying for stuff with Bitcoin. We're okay, but we're not good enough. We need to be better. So we need help with that. We want to do interesting, innovative things like players playing and getting scans and getting Bitcoin, you know, for doing things in the game, man of the match. We want to do that. My bar doesn't accept Bitcoin. People are going to lose their shares. The reason being, I'm the only Bitcoin that goes there, maybe a couple of other people.
Yeah.
And our staff are busy. But next year, when we have our conference on, the one you came to last time, we're going to expand it. There's going to be hopefully a few hundred Bitcoiners there. I'm going to need to have Bitcoin accepted there. And I want it integrated with the EPOS so my staff don't even have to think about it. So there's lots we should do and could do.
We have. So like my local cafe, the owner's a Bitcoiner, likes Bitcoin. And for years I was working, you kind of knew I was doing some stuff in Bitcoin, but you didn't know exactly what I was doing. But for years I hadn't onboarded. All these other people around the world are using LNbits to onboard cafes. But for me, there was three things which needed to exist. There was the software point of sale, which was shareable, which we made pretty early on. That's Tal, one of our developers. That was his extension. He's the first other developer to work on LNbits, other than me, Fit, Jaff, and Aniko. Anyway, and that's why you just have literally a QR code, and you say to your members of staff, right, anyone comes in, scan this on your phone, it'll pop up a point of sale. And it's denominated in fiat with sats underneath. So it's easy for them. So it's okay, £3, blah, blah, blah. So that needed to exist. The other thing which needed to exist, because I think that retailers in places where there aren't circular economies, they want to use it as a way of accumulating Bitcoin. So, if they're accepting payments on the software point of sale, lightning payments for coffees and beers, whatever, they want that. They're like, well, what can I do with this money? And you're like, we've got to leave it on the node. Really, they want that in their cold storage. So the other extension which needed to exist was an easy loop out extension. And DNI, one of our other developers, he built the incredible Bolts extension. So you can say to this extension, keep an eye on this wallet in LNbits. Every time 500,000 sats go into this wallet, loop out to on-chain.
Okay.
So my cafe dude, he's accepting payments for coffees on Lightning, and then his risk profile using a custodial service, my LNbits server, his risk profile is like £50 because every £50 it just goes whoop and it loops out. It does it really cheap as well because Bolts is awesome. It loops out to on-chain. And he just collects it in his on-chain wallet. And then the other thing which I wanted to exist was a hardware wallet, which was cheap enough for me to be able to just give him and say, use this hardware wallet, which was the DIY hardware wallet we made. So that was like a £10 hardware wallet. So he can manage his on-chain funds with the hardware wallet. So now those three things were in place. It's like, cool. Now I'm going to show you my shit.
Well, I feel like...
And it works perfectly. For him, I go in and I'm like, are you still getting that money popping into your on-chain account? And he's like, yeah, I am. And I'm like, nice. That's he's accumulating.
I feel like with Bedford, I've got this chance to create as like this circular economy. I'm very careful about doing it because I don't want to be the Bitcoin moron, or I don't want someone locally to hear about it, buy loads of Bitcoin and lose
it. It's osmosis. It can't be full frontal like.
But we have that focal point in the team. We have the meetup once a month, which can get up to 100 people too. We've got that conference we did last year, 150. We'll hopefully go to a few hundred this year. We've got the mayor of Bedford coming to a game. I've already met with the council to tell them about my plans. I want to build like a Bitcoin park in Nashville in Bedford. So I feel like I can use it as a central point to start building these different. I'd like to put an accelerator there. All these things, but.
But I think we need in Bedford, which I've wanted for a while, is like a sticker dispenser, right? Something cheap which you can give away, basically. And it's a little sticker dispenser, and on the side, it's got a QR code, a faucet, which just gives you, you scan it every 10 minutes. It gives out, every minute it gives out, 20 satoshis or something. Then you go onto the other side, and then you pay 10 satoshis to get a sticker.
Love it.
So it just spits out a little Bedford FC sticker.
Love it.
So a free dispenser, because you would have the kids going up to it and scanning that'd be cool.
We've got loads of those stickers as well. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Look, we're going to
we'll go on and on and on.
Yeah. We should get you down and just use it as an innovation center. But just to tell you, my big goal is I want to raise the money. I want to build a training center there.
Yeah.
So we've got the pitches for the training, the football, the academy for the kids, all that, but on there have a structure which is like Bitcoin Park in Nashville, which is an academy for the football with the classrooms, but also a place to host your meetups, a co-working space, a meeting place, and potentially an accelerator. So like bring all this stuff together in one place. I mean, I'd love to have your help if we pull it off.
The amount of stuff because with LNbits, obviously we've got all the hardware projects as well, and there's someone just made this amazing coffee machine, so you can pay sats, and so you're automating all that co-working space stuff like the coffee machine, the printer, the entertainment, the arcade machine, or whatever you have in the co-working space. You're automating all that stuff, and then the way people access it is when they come through the door. There's just an ATM there, and they just go up to it and put a couple of quid in, and then they just get some sats, and they can use it to experience the things at a discount.
Yeah.
In fact, you could rip them off on the ATM. And then give them the discount back when they actually pay for the things. Like there's 10% discount at the bar if you're paying Bitcoin. Use that ATM over there, which is going to charge you 15%.
Ben, listen, I could always talk to you for hours. Thank you for coming down. And
cheers.
Let's carry the conversation on sooner. You want to send anyone anywhere? Make them check something out?
If you haven't used Nostr, don't be scared. Download Amethyst on Android or Damus on iOS. I mean, I'm sure there's other clients out there as well, which are great, but they're the two which I'm aware of. And then also Iris, I use Iris on my desktop. It's so simple. It's not like having to, I don't know, it's really, you just literally open up the application, you can start using it, you can create a profile, and it will just both of those applications will walk you through using them. And you'll see the user experience is as good as Twitter. So I would say, and a big shout out to all the developers who are working on those things, the people who are contributing to building all these great Nostr things, like people like Kieran and Pablo of Coracle, and Paul Miller. He's been contributing a lot. He's did a lot of the Bitcoin and Ethereum libraries as well, so he's a good cryptographer. He's making our DMs more secure, more encrypted, which is great. Vitor from Amethyst, he just created a new way of doing DMs, which is more secure and encrypted. Like it's all those developers out there who are working and building things in this amazing permissionless environment. A huge shout out to them, and I'll see a lot of them in Australasia. I'm really looking forward to that. And anyone out there who can make it to Nostr, I strongly recommend they do, because it's quite an experience to go to a conference where you've got this new protocol which is being developed. We had it with the first Lightning Hack days, where you went there, there's just this energy, and it's just people are really excited about it. They're sitting, they're grinding on their laptops, they're building things, they're getting excited, they're exchanging ideas. And I think that's going to be one of those sorts of conferences. So if you can get there, then go to Nostr.
Where is it?
There's two running in parallel. There's one in Hong Kong, there's one in Tokyo at the same time.
Okay.
And I'm very torn between the two.
Have you been to either?
I've not been to either, no.
Oh, I've been to both.
Yeah.
I'd go to Tokyo.
It's the Shenzhen stuff, see, because I'm a hardware dork. And so I want to just skip over to Shenzhen. I got a bunch of mates in there. I want to go and meet.
I didn't get the Hong Kong thing people like other people did. It's fine. But also, I think what it was is like, there's a weird thing about Hong Kong. There's a lot of really British things there. I don't know if they're still there, like the road signs and the buses.
Oh yeah, because it was owned by the Brits, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that sucks. You want to get away from Britain.
It was a bit weird, but I don't know. It was a bit claustrophobic. I mean, I think it's one of those places, if you live there and you know all the spots to be, it's pretty cool. To me, it was just a busy city. I don't know. I just felt like with Tokyo, I experienced more of a different culture.
Yeah.
Way more of a different culture. I think Tokyo is fascinating.
Yeah, I think Tokyo is the one we're going to. It's the easier sell for the family. The family are going to come with me.
There you go.
Yeah, that would be spectacular. And just people just use a Nostr client experience. It's a great technology, but yeah, it's my first time in Tokyo, and I really look forward to. Are you going to make it to that? Do you think?
When is it?
It's November. There's something. It's the same. I think it's the same time as no. It's not the same time as Adopting Bitcoin. It's the same time as a fantastic conference, SatsConf, in Brazil, because I very sadly couldn't go to SatsConf because of it.
So November was meant to be the month I'm not going to travel, because I'm in 19 days going Latvia, Australia, Sydney, Lebanon, and then I'm back for 10 days, and then I'm going over to Canada, America, then Canada.
Doing US stuff.
And then I'm doing the African conference in December. There's just too many, you know, when it starts to build up and up and up, and I'm like, I need to travel less. And I want to be here for the football, so most likely not.
Yeah, right.
But I will look forward to you telling me about it.
Well, we should definitely implement the Bedford zapping football players thing, because that's cool.
Well, how about this? You know, we said we're going to put on a Bitcoin conference. We're going to, the one you came to. We want to expand that to a full day.
Oh, well, cool.
Well, why don't we expand it to 2 days and make one of them a Nostr day?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Has anyone done that?
No, I mean, there's just not Nostr Rica and there's just Nostr Asia, which actually they're kind of hard to get to. So I think if you did a European Nostr conference day, I mean, there is a Nostr meetup in Honey Badger.
Yeah.
Like in a couple of conferences I've had meetups, but no, a day would be great. Yeah, a day.
Let's do a Nostr day and a Bitcoin day. Let's do them side by side, boom, and everyone can come watch football.
I'll come and do a talk, happily.
We cut that fine, didn't we? All right, Ben, thank you so much. No, what do you mean come and do a talk? You're going to have to help me organise it.
All right, yeah.
You know the movers and shakers in Nostr, not me.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. I will see you soon.
All right, cheers. Thanks.